Tell me, are you ready to find your weird way? Weird was a concept that was spoken of long ago. It meant fate, it meant destiny, it meant your path in life. I'm your host, Dean Bentley, and I am here to explore how you can connect to your own path in life, to know the essence of your own soul, to connect to that single spark that lives within the deepest recesses of your being that says, this is why I am here, to go beyond the limitations, the constrictions of the modern world, and open you to the possibilities and the potentiality of what is possible within this world. Join me as we dive deep on the Wyrd Way.
Welcome back, Weird Wayers. So, we have an episode for those of you who are magic, who enjoy the mystical arts, who like to play in the magic world a little bit. This is an episode I've been sitting with for a little while. A few conversations lately have really sparked this need for a deeper conversation around certain things that happen within the magical realms. If you're working with magic, if you're exploring different realms, if you're working with deities, demons, whatever it is that you do, that there's a conversation that needs to happen to engage with, hey, what are you actually engaging with, and have an awareness of what that can create and what that looks like. This was really sparked recently after I seen a friend of mine who works with magic in a way that I've done in the past, and that's created harm for me. And this is what's really sparking this conversation for me, because for me, there was so much unawareness of what this was actually doing to my system, how it was taken from me. And I say that in the fact that it was taken, I could feel my energy leaking or being extracted from myself with some of the magical workings I was doing. And that was because I was working with things that can do that. And so this conversation is an increase in that awareness so that and this isn't to shame any magical workings or different deities or different goddesses or gods or whatever you're working with, but it's to create this conversation where it's like, if you're working with something, you can actually have awareness around that and what that might do. So this conversation is going to be a bit more mystical, esoteric, probably talking quite a few different energetics at play. So this is maybe only for a few of you, or maybe more than I think. But if you're in this realm, you'll understand where this conversation goes and why we need to have it. So let's see where we go, because this is fun. I was thinking on this episode, and I'm really enjoying giving them names lately because so much power in names. And this one, it's called Deities, Demons, and Discernment. And you can see where that's going, because fuck, we need that discernment. We need to be able to know what we're engaging with. There is a point where we can open ourselves, but what are we opening ourselves to? So if those of you who aren't familiar with working with different energies, I call them energies, you could call them gods, goddesses, deities, archetypes to a greater extent, forces. Like these are all universal things that we can engage with. A lot of um, god worship stems from using these different forces so we can actually engage with that energetic. So that's what I'm speaking to here. So you might be familiar with different gods and goddesses like Shiva, Shakti, Lakshmi, different ones, say Athena, Zeus, Hermes, Egyptian like Thoth, Sekhmet, Osiris, so on. You get the point. There's a lot of different gods and goddesses from different places. And so a recent trend with a lot of non-dual teachings and even in the love and light new age spiritual community, there comes to a point where it's just like love everything and open to everything, welcome everything. And there is no good, there is no bad. And if you've been paying attention to the DeMartini and Aubrey conversation, this is something that occurred within that as well, where on a highest plane of existence, yes, there is a non-dual reality where there is divine oneness and everything is one and it's held in a space of like love and unity and everything can exist within that space. But what can happen as we descend into the lower realms, there is a duality that's created. And this isn't the right and the wrong that, a lot of our conditioning and that stems from. It's not about being conditioned and saying, okay, this is right or this is wrong from a religious standpoint or a societal standpoint, but a discernment from the individual self that needs to occur of a connection to the individual true self, which is able to see, hey, is this in service to me, in service to life, and in service to creation? Because that's something that for me is so important. Like, I want to be in service to life. I want to serve creation. And a lot of these forces, though they can be used to open and explore recesses of the psyche, there needs to be quite a level of discernment when we're engaging with them because there can be hijacking that occurs where these energies they become more and more intense because they want presence, love, and eventually dissolving into the oneness. And this step can be missed, and people just stay in that and have a relationship to that deity. So that's what I really want to speak to because if you're in the everything's okay, there's no right or wrong, it's very hard to find your center and also what you stand for. So it's like knowing that if your everything is okay, well, how, how do you exist within this physical plane? There isn't a possibility to actually do that because you can't discern who you are because everything can run through your system, whether this be like any deities, demons, like any other currents that can just flow through you, you're open to it all. And this is the thing that a lot of people need to be careful with if they're opening themselves a lot. It's like, yes, open and explore new recesses of yourself, but also be that awareness that there is energies within this universe that don't mean good for you and good for the world. They don't actually want what's best for you. And this is something that not many people are saying. They're not having this conversation where it's like, hey, there's forces out there that are looking to take your energy, harvest your energy, and take from you, and also create harm in the world. These forces do exist. We can see this in the very physical reality right now where there is war, where there is places that people are expressing this in a very violent and aggressive way that's not needed. And this can happen because there's a rejection of aspects of ourselves where we're disowning them and projecting them. Like a lot of the stuff happening in the world is also an invitation for us to own these parts of ourselves, integrate them, alchemize them so we can actually lessen the projection that's happening out there. And this isn't an easy task, but that probably a conversation that is for a different episode as we're really focusing on this piece around the deities today. And this is just, I'm going to begin here with when you're beginning to work with a new energy, a new archetype, a new deity, really check in with what is this energy about. And this it can come when you begin to explore the collective story around it. Like there's many goddesses or gods, they have a lot of variation in their stories. There's different ones that have been told over time, but you'll start to feel as you get to know them that they have a very similar energetic current that runs throughout time, and there's different threads that you need to be aware of. So, for example, let's look at Zeus. He was a Greek, from the Greek pantheon, who was the god, like king of the gods of Olympus, and he was powerful. He was strong. He wielded lightning. He was very intense, actionable. And like, there's traits where you can say, "Oh, I would love to work with Zeus and open that energy and be connected to it." Now, there's positive traits, but there's also a shadow side where Zeus was a there's no really nice way to say this. He used a lot of women. He like fucked a lot of people and then didn't do well with them afterwards. If you've read any stories of Zeus, you probably know that he's just been with a mortal woman, impregnated her, left her, and then Hera, his wife, destroyed that woman somehow. So it's like there's energies within Zeus that aren't exactly in service to creation. And, there's an archetypal and a psyche aspect of this, but it's something if you were to work with Zeus, you would need to be aware of that shadow side of him. And this may be an invitation to work with that yourself. It's like, where is that energy um, existent? So you can get to know that part of you that doesn't care what happens after your choices and that harm that it can create to someone else. It's like there's a lot of light that can be illuminated on Zeus's shadow. But if you just work with Zeus without this awareness, you may feel that energy run through you in such a way where you begin to play that out unconsciously and not sure why you're exhibiting those traits. So it's something that happens with all energies. There's there's so much to them. It's like if you look at Lilith, for example, a very dark feminine goddess, and a lot of different stories about her. They there's some that are good, there's some that was bad. For a lot of women, she can act as a fin of liberation, as they can open themselves to something beyond the patriarchy. And this can be a really beautiful thing, but there's also the descent aspect of Lilith that can go very dark and take people into the underworld. And I've known people who will end up trapped there. They will be constantly in the process, constantly unraveling, constantly in trying to liberate and just another process. And they're always big, a lot of catharsis, but there's not a lot of growth. There's this continued deconstruction of the self, which can reveal deeper and deeper layers, but there's no energy towards creation. And this is where a lot of people can get stuck in the underworld when they can work with an underworld god or goddess, whether that would be Hades, Lilith, all of these. So you need to be aware that when you're working with these archetypal images, that they can impact you in a variation of ways that if you're not aware, hey, you need to become aware because they can hijack you, they can get you stuck there. And one of the pieces that I really wanted to bring in this episode is it's not just about the energy that you're not just about the god or goddess or deity that you're working with itself. It's actually about the energy that you're bringing to it and the relationship that you're looking to build this relationship with. So I'll tell a little bit of my own story here. A few years ago, I was doing a lot of sex magic. If you go back into this podcast, you can actually listen to an episode where I explored it with a guest, Brittany Van Gestel, who was talking a lot about it at the time. And for me, it was actually a practice then. A little bit before that episode, I was doing a lot of sexual magic as a way to help try and create the business that I wanted. But there was an energetic that I wasn't conscious of or wasn't aware of the effects of it at the time, where I was using that energy and the ritual of sex magic as a way to try and get something. I was using it to try and pull something in from me and extract something from that ritual. I was trying to use it as a means to get what I wanted, serving from the place of the ego. And what happens when you're using sexual magic in that way? What happened for me was I was trading some part of myself to try and get what I wanted. There was a sacrifice in that. And this is something to be deeply aware of when you're working with any entities or deities that, hey, there's a trade-off, there's relationships that being built. And especially if you're coming from that relationship from a place of trying to get something, which is a big case for a lot of Westerners who come from a um, colonizational mindset where we're trying to extract resources, where we're trying to get what we can for ourselves. This is a basis of many people's conditioning. What's in it for me? How can I get what I want? And they come to the deity with this same relationship. So they're trying to extract something from them. And there can be a lack of true reverence that's actually in devotion. It's like, oh, can I worship at the feet of this god or goddess and like bow down to them and actually receive their energy and receive their current? Very different relationship. And so when I was doing that at the time, what was happening is I was trading a part of myself for the materialistic outcome that I desired. And I wasn't aware of it, but over time, I began to feel really drained, really disconnected, and started to feel really empty. It was a sense of burnout. And the more I was trying to do, because I was like, oh, if I can just get a little bit more. And there was a recognition that in that process, I wasn't honoring my divine wholeness, that I am whole, that I have everything I need, that I'm abundant. And so I was disconnected from my innate truth, my innate wholeness. And this is a problem when you're working with these things. It's like, I'm trying to get something I don't have. Well, you're saying you're not that, and you are everything. There's a dissociation from your truth that you are the whole of everything, and everything you have is already inside you. So if you're trying to do that and be like, oh, I need to pull this into me, well, you're also saying, I don't have that. So you're giving it away to some other power, some other being. And it's not just going to work because your invitation, your growth point is going to be about how you can recognize your divinity. That simply, your wholeness, your pure essence, everything that you are, acknowledging all aspects of you. So when you're working with these beings from a place of trying to get something, is creating a lot of harm. So notice that if you're in ritual and you're trying to extract, and this is what the basis of a lot of black magic is trying to get what you want from a place of ego, of trying to get it for yourself. And I've done that. I don't recommend it. It's not a path that I will be going back down because it doesn't feel like it serves my soul. It serves my ego, but it doesn't serve reality. It serves what I believe it should be, and it's saying that I know what's best rather than bowing down to something greater than ourselves, which for me is a right relationship with a lot of these energies, except if it's an energy that, for me, isn't something I'm going to allow in my space. And this is the discernment piece. Like I talk of reverence, I talk of bowing down to something greater. And there's also acknowledgement of what I said before. There's forces that are here to do harm, are here to take from us, extract, and do their own version of what we're doing. So it's not to bow down to them, it's actually to stand firm and say, no, you are not welcome in my space. I hold that energetic boundary. I hold that protection of myself. And there's this really deep acknowledgement that needs to occur within this of saying, no, I'm not going to do that. So when I'm talking about bowing down, offering reverence, it's this acknowledgement that there is something greater than ourselves. And this is what we may need faith for, or the belief in some higher power. That higher power can be God, it can be a different deity, it could be Jesus, it could be Krishna, it could be other being, but something else. It could be life itself, and bowing down to that fin that says, I'm going to be in service to something positive, whatever that could be. It could be a vision for humanity, but it's becoming in service to that so that energy can flow. Not the ego, not the mind, not the idea of what I need to do to create it, but being in service to that truth that wants to flow through you. This is what's going to allow you to be in service to life. If you're familiar with archetypes, the king archetype, or this could be true for the queen as well, in its healthy expression, knows that he or she is in service to something greater. They have bowed down to a bigger vision or the bigger possibility or something they know that they need to serve, and this is what their commitment of life is to. And the tyrant is someone who believes that he is the thing that he serves, or she is the thing that she serves, which isn't true. It's this realization that we're here for something more than ourselves. We're here for, even if it's our lineage, our kids, our grandkids, the ones that come after us, are we being in service to them? And so when we're considering the deities and the different beings that we're working for, there's this question of, okay, what does this being represent for myself, for my community, for the planet? And is it actually going to be in service for the longevity of life? Because there's some that would not. And this isn't to say to disregard them. Like I said, you may work with them for a season or a cycle or a specific ritual to create that opening that you need for something, but it's to be aware of that current, being aware that what happens if that flows through you and continues to flow through you, and where will that take you? Is it going to take you in a positive direction? Like I spoke of Lilith earlier, and there's an element where there's an exile her, in her archetype. She's been exiled from the garden, exiled from that. So if you're to follow that energy forever, where does it take you? Exile. And so being aware of these threads of what these energies represent and what they can be and create is something that must be considered when we're working with them and getting to know them. And there's so much here that needs to be unpacked in just the awareness of there's a lot we don't understand. And sometimes that's the acknowledgement. You may not know what you're working with. You may not know what you're doing. And there's a lot of ignorance that we have as people where we think we know. But these beings often are on another level or another level of awareness and can be very deceptive. They can be very trickster energy, especially if you're working with the trickster or different Fey energies that can be like, hey, everything's okay until it's not. And so focusing on how you can have a right relationship, this is going to be one of the things that's going to be the most powerful. If you can have a right relationship with any being, even if it's something that I may view as shouldn't work with it, but having that right relationship will actually be able to see, oh, this is something to work with, engage with, and build a relationship with, a healthy relationship, not something you can just take and use and get whatever you want. It's like, what does it mean to be in relationship to this energy, and what would that look like? Because this is going to change everything. If it's like, oh, does this mean you make offerings? And if you look at a lot of cultures who still have a lot of relationship to their gods and goddesses, they're in prayer, they're in ritual, they make offerings to the gods and goddesses they work with. A lot of them aren't trying to get something in return. They have a trust and a faith that this energy, this archetype, is looking after them and serving them. They're not having the same colonial mindset that's saying, hey, I'm trying to get something, so I'm going to work with Lakshmi because I want abundance. It's like, okay, like maybe cultivate a relationship with her, but also do what it takes to build that relationship rather than going to her and just saying, hey, I need wealth, so I'm going to see how I can get that from you. That's not a good relationship with life in any way because it's coming from that same undercurrent that is actually the invitation for a different way of life with this world, to see how you can be of service, to see how you can create connection and relationship that serves something greater than yourself. And if you're like, Dean, that makes no sense. I'm talking to a deity, and it's like, if you create a healthy relationship with any being, whether that's a tree, whether that's a plant, whether it's a god, whether it's a goddess, whether it's another human being, if you create a healthy relationship with them, it's going to serve you, it's going to serve your heart, it's going to serve the community, it's going to serve everything. And this is one of the foundations. It's like for a lot of us, this is the real work to actually change our relationship that we're having with life, where we're looking to see what we can get and how we can have what we want and all these things. It's like, hey, actually, what are you being asked to give? What's on offer for you to share your heart? What skills and abilities do you have that you can actually give this world rather than being like, oh, I want to get this for me? Sit with yourself and see what's being asked of you and how can you serve that at a deeper level, and then bring that into relationships with the deities that you work with, because this is going to allow you to have more depth, more intimacy, and more connection. And most will open a lot more to this approach. It's like, oh, there's an honor and there's a reverence. And whether you view these as energies or deities, that it feels very different. If you're just assuming you can get what you want, it's not going to work. I can only say that so many times. If you do that, if you do just try to get what you want, There's always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off. You, if you're familiar with a quick return, you'll know that there's no longevity to it. It's like you can do something good or you can do something quick, and you know what happens. The quick normally fails pretty quick. That if you actually build the solid foundations, it's going to create a lot of longevity for you and a healthy relationship over time and a slow, gradual growth. A lot of us are trying for the big wing straight away or the massive change. And I've said this in other episodes, but the quantum leap or that massive transformation only occurs when there's enough solid foundations in place that allows you to grow into that in a moment. But before that moment, there was a lot of build up, there was a lot of devotion, there was a lot of time. And so please, when you're working with these energies, just have some discernment around what you're working with. We're looking at what we're creating for humanity right now. And like honestly asking the question of, is this in service to humanity and where we want to go as a collective? Because there's energies that would not have us go on a positive timeline or a positive path, and that's going to create a lot of harm for us and yourself in the future if we continue to go down that. So actually asking this question of ourselves, is what I'm engaging in service to life, and how can I be more of service to life? And when I say life, I mean the creation of more beauty, more richness, more connection, intimacy, and truth with the world around us, because this is what humanity needs. It needs more connection, it needs more love, it needs more care. All of these things that when we begin to ask this question, is this in service to life? Am I being of service to this? Am I offering myself to it? Well, we're going to allow something else to be created. And even the image I've been having for this episode is that of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree where the forces of evil are coming at him. And he holds up his hand and he's like, in that, I get the sense of no. Like he can acknowledge and see these forces, these beings, and love them, but in this loving them, actually transmute them into something else. And that's what a lot of us are here to do and actually create change, because it's time we say no to some of these forces and these beings. We can love them, we can welcome them home into the embrace of love so they can actually dissolve and say, hey, it's time for this to actually end here, so we can actually move on to creating something more beautiful, more magical, more loving, and create a better world from that place. So, Wyrd Ways, this was a very different episode. I'd love to hear how this landed for you. I'd love to hear this conversation if it sparked any threads, if it's like, oh shit, I need to be more aware of that. Please bring that conversation, because this is the start of a way where we can actually begin to have these conversations about the invisible world, around the unknown or the unseen that not a lot of people are having, because we need to be talking of this. We need to be discussing what energies we're working with and are we truly being of service to life? Because when the world's going the way it is right now, this conversation needs to be at the forefront of what are we actually creating and where are we sending our energy, because we are creating and co-creating the reality that we have. So what are we collectively co-creating and where are we moving towards in the future? So, Wyrd Ways, thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful night.